I'll be back.
Hello everyone, I'm Keanu and today I'll be ranking all 6 Terminator movies from the worst to the best. Be sure to subscribe if you enjoy, and with that said, let's get into it. Coming in at last place is Terminator Genisys. Now, I'm usually a big fan of time travel movies and alternate timelines, and while this movie has its moments where it does that well, as a whole it just didn't really work. A lot of the time it's either too confusing or really doesn't make sense whatsoever. It's really a mix of interesting ideas, good ideas, and absolutely terrible ideas. Making John a Terminator is an example of a very bad idea.
It's so dumb.
It's so dumb, it's brilliant.
No! It's just dumb.
On the other hand, telling this alternate version of the first film is pretty interesting, but it's definitely not set up properly and doesn't make a lot of sense. A lot of the characters are also miscast, especially John Connor. So overall, while it can have some interesting moments, it doesn't come together as a whole and just ends up being a mess. Now, the next 3 movies on this list are all flawed films, but they are films that I can enjoy for different reasons, so I have fun with them. That brings us to Terminator Salvation. This is a movie that I have a bunch of issues with, but still enjoy for a few reasons. What I like about it is we finally get to see the war against the machines, which means there's some interesting world building and a lot of spectacular action scenes. This movie is probably visually the best looking one, and the cast is also really good, especially Christian Bale for John Connor. But on the other hand, for most of the movie's runtime, it never really feels like a Terminator movie. Instead, it just feels like a generic sci-fi film. The subplot about a human not knowing he's a Terminator is also pretty dumb. Another thing that brings this movie down is the lack of Arnold in it. In 4th place is Dark Fate. Now, what I really appreciated about this movie is that it continues the story of Terminator 2 and doesn't just completely ignore it like a lot of the other movies did. The story itself is very familiar and doesn't really feel new or inventive. It uses the same formula most of these movies use, but it follows the formula well at least. One thing that really stood out to me in this film are the fight sequences, which are very dynamic and exciting. The villain is also pretty menacing, and it's great having Sarah Connor back in the franchise. But the thing that really elevates this movie is Arnold, as I think Carl is one of the best Terminators in the franchise. The idea of what would happen if a Terminator has completed his mission is pretty interesting, and this film explores it well. He also has some really funny moments in this movie. So while it has some great elements, the formula holds it back, and there are some other movies in this franchise that definitely do it better. In 3rd place is Rise of the Machines. This is a movie with a bunch of great elements, but at the same time, a few things that don't work. First off, the obvious one is that this movie undermines everything that happened in the second film. The goal of Terminator 2 was to stop Judgement Day, and according to this film, Judgement Day is inevitable. The reason for this is obviously to make more sequels, which means more money. But other than that, I actually really had a blast with this film and was entertained from start to finish. It still has the same vibe as the original too, with some added humor.
Talk to the hand.
Now.
Arnold is great like always, and the 2 leads are also fun. The action is also bigger and more spectacular than ever. The ending was definitely unexpected, and although, as I said, this does undo the victory in the previous film, taking this movie on its own, it's a great ending. In 2nd place, we have Terminator. The first film is such a great introduction to this world and absolutely nailed the concept. It does a great job of combining different genres to create an iconic film. It's a good action movie, it's a good sci-fi movie, it's a thriller and a time travel film. All of these fit together so well. It also tells a very straightforward story, but has all these memorable elements that make it stand out. Like the Terminator going off the names in a phone book and the time travel twist at the end. Terminator himself is just a great movie villain that constantly creates the sense of danger, as he's so menacing and can basically not be killed. This movie is also very quotable and came up with the one-liners that would be used throughout the franchise.
I'll be back.
I'll be back. She'll be back.
I'm back.
I'll be back.
I'll be back.
What? I'll be back.
So put it all together, this is a very good introduction to this world and features one of the best movie villains of all time. But coming in at number 1 is Terminator 2 Judgement Day. While the first film was a great introduction to this franchise, this film builds upon everything, taking it to the next level. As fun as it was seeing Arnold as the villain, he's great as the hero in this movie who slowly learns how to be human. Him being programmed to protect John this time is also a nice spin on the first film, before it's been reused in most of the other films. It's also a really good action movie that doesn't try to have the biggest action, it tries to have good and memorable action. It also features a phenomenal villain in the T-1000, which is up there on the same level as Arnold in the original film. The plot is also really well written, as it's a story about change in the future, so it has all the good time travel elements you want, and the plot all crescendos into a great final battle and sacrifice. This film is truly a great sequel and a great sci-fi film, so it comes in at number 1.